Welcome to the Geniuses of Copywriting podcast, a peek into the minds and strategies of the world's greatest copywriters, marketers, and persuasion experts. And now, here's your host, Brian Casangina.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Geniuses of Copywriting podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun today because we've got the young Angie Colee on the call with us today. So thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you coming along. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm awesome, man. Awesome. No, it's a good thing to hang out with you on a Friday night as we do this show. So, I think we'll have a lot of fun because if I can intro you to the listeners very quickly, you're a self-taught copywriter who worked your way up through the ranks, running teams of some of the most successful internet marketers around. I'm really looking forward to hearing about that. Because I've worked with a few successful ones myself. You've done millions of dollars in sales in all different industries for these guys and yourself. And now you're coaching up-and-coming copywriters and how to conquer their fears, gather up the courage to leave the day job, which is a hard thing, although I've done that several times, so they can do their own thing in a freelance way. So, yeah, thanks for joining us on the call.
No problem.
Appreciate that. Can you tell us what kind of stuff are you working on right now?
Well, I've got some big projects coming up. So I work for Jeff Walker, a product launch formula, and a coach with Kevin Rogers of Copy Chief. And we've got some big projects coming up on the horizon that I can't really share because they're not live yet. But I'm super excited to see what they generate.
Yeah, interesting. So what's it like to work with some of these big name gurus?
It's really interesting because I think the funny thing about working with Jeff is that I met him through a mutual connection, and I didn't really honestly know who he was before I applied to work with him. And so once I was like, oh, okay, this guy seems super legit, I started doing research. I just threw my hat in the ring with the best application that I could. And I think that actually wound up helping me a little bit because I didn't approach it from this place of like starstruck or, oh my God, what if I'm not good enough? I just approached it like any other gig. And I think that's the funny thing, since I get to work with him on a pretty consistent basis, that the gurus are just normal people and they love cutting loose and dropping F-bombs like the rest of us.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked myself with Vishen Lakhiani of Mind Valley for 3 years and pretty closely, and Justin Brook as well for about 6 months. And the guys are just, they're just, that's what I find too, they're just regular people who have a good skill set. So, but I really wanted to find out about this because this is something that that I'm going to be talking about in an event that we've got coming up in Poland, how I actually managed to land some of these what I call big fish clients, and no doubt you've done the same as well. What is the best piece of advice that you could give someone if if they see one of these experts is hiring?
That's actually a good, what I would say is if they're hiring, just know where you are realistically. Because if there's a job announcement out and they're pushing it out to their list, that's when you land in the pile with all of the other resume piles, and you're going to have difficulty standing out. I think the best way to get to know these people is to get involved in their communities and really understand what they're doing from the inside out. I'll tell you, we've got pitches that come in all the time with people that usually young dudes that aren't really familiar with the brand, that tell us how they can make us more money and they can like really improve the team and stuff like that. But understand that until you know the community from the inside out, everything that you're operating on is an assumption and you don't really have any knowledge about how you can help. So and understand when I say this, like they're paying attention to people who make themselves useful in the community. If you have a guru or an industry leader that you follow and you've learned their message to the point that you can answer like they would to their people, they know you. Like I've been to events before on, where people have interacted with me online for both Jeff's business and Kevin's business, and they're surprised when I remember their name. I'm like, well, you give thoughtful responses. You help a lot of people. Of course I know your name.
That's really interesting, because that personal touch and, the way I was kind of taught to apply for jobs when I was, around high school age was completely different to that. You had to actually look at the company's website and basically find out what they were doing, and there's nothing to do with communities. No, there was no way to, even if it existed right back then, I'm not sure that schools would have taught that at all. So that's really
and that was all about like optimizing your resume for a software that's scanning for keywords and stuff like that. And this is such a relationship business. You and I have floated in the same circles for years. And when you reached out to connect, I was like, oh yeah, I know that guy. I don't know why we haven't connected before now. And so like when you are out there and you're genuinely trying to help people, and like what I would say is avoid the dick slinging corners of the internet where everybody's out trying to tear each other down and brag and one up each other. But if you're out there genuinely trying to help people and genuinely trying to master your craft, people are noticing and you're making good connections already.
So what kind of communities are we talking about here exactly? Because some of these guys are quite active in things like Facebook groups, and while some probably never really log in at all. Is Facebook groups a big tool that when you comes to talking about this?
A little bit Facebook groups, because I know that there's a couple like copywriting related communities out there on Facebook. People ask me how I got involved in Kevin's world, and that was I was a paying member of Copy Chief first and foremost. I joined because I wanted to be better as a copywriter, and then I realized that I was one of the few people that actually, when I joined Copy Chief, I had 5 or 6 years of experience. And so I was able to answer people that were behind me on the path and needed to learn what I knew about copywriting. And, as my expertise has grown, I've been able to help people behind me, help people behind them, and came up on Kevin's radar. And I took training with him. I got to know him really well. I respected his message and his approach to business and learned everything I could from him and helped as much as I could. And that's how I came to coach for him.
Yeah, interesting. And Kevin's such a great guy as well. I've only met him once or twice, but yeah, it's a great point that you make about this is like an investment into your future. If you're just hanging around the free groups and there's paid offers around, especially if you're a copywriter. Say you're a copywriter, which is a lot of people obviously listening to podcasts are. And you want to work with Kevin, say, and you're in his group and interact a little bit with comments on Facebook and something like that. But you won't join his paid membership, which I think is still relatively inexpensive, great investment. If you won't to take that step, do you think that would really hold back a copywriter wanting to work with Kevin?
I mean, it can, and I'll speak in a broader sense, like not just to Kevin, but when you're starting a business, especially a freelance business, you have to do what you can with what you've got. You can't let lack of capital stop you from doing these things. Yeah. Now, that said, if you've got a little bit of experience and you've done the shitty local gig and the crappy Upwork jobs, and you've proven that you can get paid to do this. Then the next step is realizing that if you want someone to pay you real money, you've got to be willing to pay real money to get in the room with them. They're not hanging out in free, like you mentioned earlier, they're not signing into Facebook to hang out in free groups, not unless they're getting paid, because they understand that their time is worth money. They're paying 5 figures to get in a room and meet with people that are on their level. So this really is an investment in yourself when you're willing to pay for that.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, because we, and I'm sure you're thinking the same way. We know in no way mean to imply that Kevin or anyone else would only hire people who have paid a certain level of money. That's not the way it works. It's just a massive stepping stone. If you are in that paid group, that's just a massive advantage that you have, especially if you're a copywriter. He has copywriting training, and you want to work for him, but you won't invest in yourself. Yeah, you're exactly right with that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely not a mental checklist like, did someone pay to be part of my group? Okay, I could hire them.
It's not on the checklist.
But it's a subtle cue when you're willing to spend money and invest in yourself and be in the same room with these people and kind of step up. You know, Brian Kurtz talks about not being the smartest person in the room. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of younger copywriters make, is that they're constantly trying to prove and like,
true.
Look, here's what I know and here's how I can help. And listening and asking questions is the best way to show your expertise, and being surrounded by smart people that can show you the next step is the best way to increase your expertise.
Yeah, and here's proof that that you're 100% right on this, is because, you know, as I think I mentioned before, I wrote for Ad Skills for about 6 months, and Justin Brook, and writing the daily newsletter. And well, obviously I've been writing copy for a long time. You know, paid ads is not my strong point. You know, I'd never, I don't think I've ever bought a major course from Ad Skills. I've never really done much paid traffic in my own business. I'm just starting to do it now. So everything that I wrote about when I was there, you know, I had to learn on the job, and we got started pretty quickly and had some really big wins. But you know, I didn't have to join all of Justin's programs and before he would you know, hire me, and he would never set such a criterion, and none of the people that we would work with would do such a thing. But you can do it, and that, I think that gives hope to a lot of copywriters. You know, because when Justin contacted me, he said, you know, let's work together. I'm thinking like, geez, the Daily Edge, you know, that's pretty intimidating. Not only is it one of the most respected newsletters in the entire industry, you know, it's about a subject which is not my strongest subject. If it was about general copywriting or email copywriting, especially, you know, I'd be right at home. But I had to do a lot of training there, so it can be done.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And like, it's about starting where you're at with what you've got, and then actually taking action instead of getting caught in that perpetual studying
exactly
trap.
Right.
Like you mentioned when you introduced me that I'm a self-taught copywriter, and it's true. I went to school and I got 3 degrees, none of which I actually use now. Like my master's degree up there gathering dust.
Yeah.
And after I got laid off from a job that was actually related to my master's degree, I read a book. I read a $20 book called The Well-Fed Writer by Peter Bowerman. And then I went out and was like, I could figure this out. And 10 years later, this is where I'm at. So it's about starting where you're at with what you've got, and then using any revenue that you generate and investing in getting better. Yeah.
If somebody's going to target these gurus for copywriting gigs, whether it's ongoing or if it's just a freelance thing, do you think that it's best to sort of work your way up to sort of lesser known marketers, or is it just a good idea just to go right for the big fish like a Jeff Walker?
That's actually a really good question. I hadn't thought about it. I think if you want to work with the big fish, you'd better be prepared to show some results at least. It doesn't necessarily need to be in a related field. Like when I went to work for Jeff, I was coming from in-house retail. And I had worked there. I mean, we're talking writing physical print catalogs that went out, writing product descriptions and sending daily retail broadcasts by email. And that's not internet marketing. It's definitely a different field, but there are transferable skills. So I think if you bring some results to the table and then you show them how you connect the dots between what you've generated and what you can do, I think that's a good place to start. I think if you're the kind of person, and you just have to know how you operate, if you're the kind of person that needs the confidence boost before you feel like you've leveled up to working with someone like that, then yeah, start with someone that's, you know, a step or two ahead of you and target those people. But just like understand that no one is really going to turn around and like hand you an opportunity. You have to be prepared to step up into that role and to do your best with every opportunity that you've got.
You always have to earn it, like you say, and whether that's through your own business or working with other people. I asked a question because people want to jump right in and work and say they worked with Jeff Walker or somebody like that, who everybody in the community would instantly know who that is. Yeah. And it's a big feather in your cap, but I just it's not easy for everyone to make that sort of a huge leap. Yeah, often people have to work up to it.
That's true. And I think a lot of people get intimidated a little bit. It's a big brand. It's a big voice. But if you can speak for any other brand, if you've done work for any other brand, you can do the same for it's this exact same process. So I think that's how I kind of made peace with it. I'm like, this is just like writing in any other voice I've ever written. And that's how we got to work so close together.
That's a really interesting point as well, writing in different people's voices. Do you have any tricks for that? Because that's one of the big challenges that any copywriter faces when they come on board with a new client. It's almost inevitable that there's going to be some difference until you really get unless they're pretty much exactly the same as what you've been writing already. Do you have any tricks for that?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you've met Abby Woodcock, but she was actually the person that designs the voice training for Jeff. And she's got this great download on one of her sites. I would have to look it up. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but she's got a book actually that helps define how she breaks down voice. And I mean, if I were to shorten it up, and this is not doing it justice like whatsoever, but you've got to develop this internal voice in your head. I've joked with Jeff before when I had to write on site at one of his events that I had to actually put on headphones at one point and drown out the Jeff on stage so that I could hear the Jeff in my head because he was confusing me by the double talk. And that's really the thing. Like I'll draft something and then to sound, legit crazy, I'll turn on the Jeff in my head and read it in that voice. And if it sounds like something that he wouldn't say, I couldn't imagine him saying that on video, then I'll cut it and I'll rework it. And that's hours of listening to his videos, listening to the podcast that he's recorded, listening to the feedback videos he's recorded with me, asking him, like, I'll literally ask him questions all day if he lets me. So we have to schedule meetings where I can pepper him with questions. And it's studying how they would answer things and the vocabulary they use and the things that they choose to leave out and why. And really just kind of understanding their thought processes that allows you to become a good mimic. And the thing is, I would say, so there's a team of us that write for Jeff. There's 3 of us total, plus Jeff does some of his own writing. And the cool thing about a team is that I'm never going to be 100% Jeff because I'm Angie, right? Yeah. I'm never going to be in his head and I'm never going to get it. I mean, there are pieces that I can get that are 100% there that he'll publish, and that's fine. Yeah. But I'm never going to be 100% everything that ever created. I'm going to nail the first time Jeff. But between the 3 of us that write for him, each of us brings our 80 to 90%, and that sounds like a very rich, nuanced voice.
Yeah. And Vishen was the same. He was very hands-on with all his writers, so. We work closely with him just to perfect and polish everything up. So, it's the same thing. It's really interesting. Mm-hmm. What's it like to work with some of these guys, like on a personal level? Are they very demanding, or do they let you be very entrepreneurial, or do they want you to sort of work in a rigid structure with the team? I imagine it varies from person to person.
Yeah. And I think the thing that attracted me to Kevin and to Jeff are that they are exactly the person off screen as they are on camera.
Yeah.
And that's probably the question I get asked the most when people find out that I work for Jeff, I work for Kevin. Like,
what's it like?
Person?
Yeah.
To say, is he really as nice as he seems to be in person? Like, yeah, it's the exact same person. And these were guys that were preaching authenticity before it became a trendy thing.
Yeah.
That understood that people need to feel like they know the real you and they're not just being told. So I love that. Like, these are genuinely guys that live the message that they're saying. And there are other entrepreneurs that do that too, that believe in hustling 24/7 and really not taking vacations. And Kevin and Jeff are both very big on replenishing the well, understanding that creativity is a limited resource and that you've got to take time for yourself. You've got to separate from work a little bit. And to that end, you know, there have been times that I've been on, like, we use a Slack channel to communicate for Jeff's team. And there have been times that I've popped on and answered something at 10 o'clock at night. And if he was on, he was like, sign off. We can handle this tomorrow. It's okay. I need you to enjoy your weekend. And I really respect that about them.
Yeah. I try and do the same with my team as well, because they're always popping up at different times, and because we're all online all the time, and we actually use Facebook a lot for chatting. So we that kind of on by default, and if something comes up, you know, say, don't worry about that now. Just it's a weekend. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy your evening. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it tomorrow.
Exactly. I'm a fan of saying there's no such thing as a copy emergency. There are deadlines, but if it's an emergency, it's just shitty planning. Yeah,
true. And on that note of teams and everything, I want to dive deeper into the entrepreneurial factor of the person working on that team. Do these guys encourage you to be entrepreneurial? Do they just want basically have you exclusively? Because the thing with Vishen, you know, he preferred people to be focused on the team, and that's fair enough, of course. You know, you're working for Mindvalley and everything they stand for. Whereas I know some entrepreneurs are more than happy for somebody who's on their team to have their own business to run, especially if they're not working full time. I've had some like that. What's been your experience with that?
Well, it's interesting because I remember the last time I read a job listing that Jeff had, like, they make it clear when they're bringing somebody on board to work with the team that they're interested in a long-term relationship. This is not personal coaching so that you can launch your own business. This is not like get to know PLF from the inside out so that you can go do your own thing. But they also understand that everybody on the team is very naturally drawn to entrepreneurship and publishing and doing your own thing. Like, we live the values from the inside out that he preaches. So that said, like, we never really sat down and had a talk about, like, here's what I do, here's what I don't do. And I just don't flaunt it, and I don't let that get in the way of what I'm doing. I do my own thing because I'm not going to let anybody not let me do my own thing. You know what I mean? And they know that I'm super passionate. One of the reasons that I coach for Kevin is that, you know, it changed my life when I realized that I could do this thing. And it all started from one book. So if I can help someone realize that they could start an entirely new career, they could become their own copywriter, start their own business, and gain that confidence, then I'm going to do everything in my power to do that. And not only do that, but help introduce talented copywriters to clients that really need talented copywriters. So I think that even if it ever came down to, like, I just don't foresee a future where Jeff would tell me not to follow my passion like that.
Yeah, true. Meeting him briefly at TNC this year, he seemed like he was really laid back and he's that kind of guy. Some I ask because some people are, if they're no matter who they're considering working with, you know, it could be the person wants them exclusively and doesn't want them running their own business. I think the way you approach it is ideal. You know, you would never let your business get in the way of the work with Jeff and vice versa. So you would never use some kind of inside knowledge from Jeff's business to get ahead in your own business. So, and
it's funny on that note because, you know, I'm on Kevin's team too, and we've promoted for a lot of the same affiliate offers. And every time I heard even a hint of Kevin and his team talking about an affiliate promotion, I was like, I recuse myself. I need to get off this call. I don't want to hear it. And like, I won't even let a hint of I'm using this to advance my career here. Ever taint my dealings.
That's a balancing act when you're working with more than one of these experts, because there could be some conflict like that, especially they're in very similar niches.
And I saw a clear dividing line though, because I write emails for Jeff and I don't write promotional emails for Kevin. So there's no need that I need to be on promotional discussions for Kevin in terms of JVs like that, because I've already got a gig doing that.
But my next question was going to be, how do you handle that? And I think you covered that nicely. You know, just make sure that there's no no hint of even a possibility of you like being witness to any information that could be like that, in that put you in a situation. So you'd have to you have to police that all the time and be vigilant.
Absolutely. And you have to think about how your clients would interpret your actions. And so I would rather be super upfront about, I need to recuse myself from this conversation, than it ever even pop into their mind that this might be something that's happening. And I want to point out to them that I'm thinking about it before they ever even think about it. And I think that's why I've got a reputation of doing the right thing, because I'm really focused on it.
True. Yeah. What other advice can you give to people who want to, work with the big dogs in whether a copywriter or anything else?
Well, I'll reiterate that it's important to get to know their business from the inside out. Like, I've seen some of the pitches that come through where people are lecturing Jeff on like how to build a relationship with their audience before they pitch. And I'm like, do you even know who you're talking to? Like, have you actually followed our work and gotten to, because
and has that ever worked before?
I know, like, from what I'm hearing from your pitch, I'm like, it's clear to me that you have no idea who we are and how we operate. Because
perhaps Jeff you could try a launch model.
They're both the epitome of give away as much as possible. So definitely get to know the product before you presume that you can help someone. Don't make assumptions about, and definitely don't come into it with a critical approach. I know I've seen people that have a strategy of picking apart an email and telling people like, oh, I noticed this and this and this, and you need to fix that. And it's horrible and it's killing conversions. I can tell you that a typo in a Jeff Walker email has never killed a conversion for us. So everybody needs to stop beating on that damn drum. If they love the content that you're putting out on a regular basis, they will forgive all manner of typographical sins.
True. And when you start to pump out so much of that content, typos are inevitable. That's just it's a numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what are some of the, is there any particularly weird or quirky pictures that people have made to Jeff? Because I'm thinking, I just saw a video of Todd Brown and Agora, one of his free trainings he does. Joe Schriefer, the copy chief of Agora Financial, is showing Todd Brown around his office, and he shows him some of the weird stuff that people have sent in with their applications. I don't know if you've seen this video where one of the things is like literally an anvil, which someone sent in, which I don't know what the shipping was on that, but Joe Schriefer's got this anvil, black solid steel, but obviously cast iron anvil on his desk, which is part of an application letter for someone who wants to write copy for Agora Financial.
I don't work in the same town as the core staff. They're based out in Colorado, and I am currently in Florida. So I don't see any of like the physical mailers that come in. I do know that we've run spec challenges for AWAI and put out, and I will say this, like, if you're going to apply to an application, follow the directions that you're given. That's not the chance to be creative. When you're going to be creative, it's something like that, where it's out of the blue and you're trying to get their attention. But like if I put out an assignment that says, hey, write me this blog post as Jeff Walker, I don't want to see your like 4 pages from the perspective of a housewife. That's not actually relevant to what the job is. So, I would say that, like, follow the directions if you're looking to get their attention through traditional application routes. And then definitely, I'm totally not actually answering the question in terms of quirky. I would say that the housewife essay was definitely one of the weirder things that I got. I also had someone throw a chocolate bar with their website printed on the label at me when they saw me face to face. And I will say that too, like, if you meet me at an event, leave behinds are probably not a thing. Like, I got to pack a bag at the end of the day, and dozens and dozens of people are trying to hand me stuff. I'm probably not going to pack it all and take it all with me. So your best bet is to get to know me as a person. And again, going back to the importance of relationships, get to know me, get to know somebody that you want to develop a relationship with. And for God's sake, don't throw chocolate at them.
Unless you're a bit peckish, you wouldn't mind a chocolate bar right now, actually. I probably wouldn't bother to read the website on the label there.
Yeah, I would probably just eat the chocolate.
That sounds good to me as well.
Yeah. And it's not because I'm a mean person. It's just that you have to understand that there are a lot of other people that are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And if time is a precious resource, I would much rather spend my time getting to know you and remember you for who you are, face to face, having interesting conversations versus, well, that person left me a chocolate bar and so did a dozen other.
Yeah. Because that's what it's all about. I think the higher profile the guru, the more job applications they would get, both cold and in response to an ad.
Yeah, absolutely. We get inundated every time we publish an ad.
Yeah. Mindvalley is pretty much the same thing. There's a whole culture where Mindvalley is like the dream job, because they always talk about the team in different content pieces, and the team is awesome. They do great things, and they have great fun events and all of that. So that's like a well-known thing online, and especially with younger people, they all want to be on the Mindvalley team because that's kind of the age group where it's attractive. So I don't know how I made it on there. I was like there to totally trash the bell curve in age, but.
Hey, I think I almost applied for that gig once upon a time when you had a senior role open. Okay. I don't remember. I think I had a partner at the time that wasn't willing to move to Malaysia, and that's what stopped me. But
yeah.
Even I considered it.
It's a big move because the Mindvalley, the core team, is all in the Malaysian office. There's a few satellite offices as well, but they do have a handful of freelancers, and I did freelance copy for a while after I left. But the core team is in one place, in one main place, and this is by the way you've been saying is it sounds like it's the same case with Jeff and everyone else. They have like a proper office with a core team, and how do they approach remote working in different time zones?
That's it. Like they put a premium on communication skills and people being able to articulate, this is where I'm at in a project and this is how I need help, and keeping things moving forward instead of just kind of working in your own corner. I think that, the main office that they have there is pretty much Jeff and his family, because that's how he started growing the business. And none of this is a secret. He's mentioned this in his videos. Like the first people that he brought on were pretty much his family members to help out. And then he started growing. And I think it was natural to like pick people from the community around him. And then he started hiring, all the team members, and we're spread out all across the United States and Canada, all different backgrounds and skill sets. And it's crazy from, tech and customer service to videography and design. So it's a pretty cool gig. I would say we get together with a coach every once in a while to help us figure out what we want to focus on, where our goals are. And we try to spend quality time together whenever there's an event. It's an all hands on deck type situation. You'll see me at the back table at a Jeff event answering questions and checking people in. He is very conscious in building a team culture where people are comfortable stepping out of their roles. So I think if I were the kind of person that was like, nope, my job is just behind my keyboard, writing copy, I probably wouldn't be successful in this environment. And then you just have to know that about the people that you're trying to work with.
Yeah. And I've had some experiences with that as well, where, I've been writing copy for a client and now I'm starting to look at the funnels and tracking and even well, not so much the tech stuff, but the strategy behind the campaigns, and it's like, Brian, I need a copywriter to just sit there and write your copy. And relationships like that never last. I like the way that Jeff approaches it. Like you mentioned, you want to grow into different things.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the industry, at least the high rollers in the industry, I think they're moving toward that, because that's one of the things that I do with Kevin is help connect clients and copywriters. I have the opportunity to get to know a lot of copywriters through coaching them and feel pretty confident in their skills, making recommendations. But I get asked over and over again, like, how do I hire someone like you, someone that's long-term, someone that's dedicated to learning and growing with my company? So that doesn't necessarily equate to in-house, like physically in-house, but I'm in-house, meaning that I've worked for Jeff's company for 2 years. I don't have any plans to leave anytime soon because I love it. I've worked with Kevin for several years now. I don't even remember when we officially started working together. I don't have any plans to leave that either. And that doesn't mean that there's not space, because you and I were talking about that earlier. Hey, stay in touch. You never know how the team's going to grow. We got some pretty big plans. Growth is possible.
Yeah.
Like, just because people are full now doesn't mean that there's not opportunity to get in, but it's about those relationships and knowing the people that are in the position to make an introduction to you when those opportunities arrive.
Do you think that it can actually work in your favor if you're thinking long term? If a guy like Jeff is full now, but he's not hiring, but that means that seems to me like you've got a great chance to actually build that relationship over time. And when the time comes, 6 months or a year down the track, you're basically in.
Absolutely. And to go back to what we talked about earlier, being involved in their communities, talk about the ultimate sales strength when the opportunity arises to be able to say, I have this much experience in your method and I've done this, this, and this, and be able to like link them to posts that you've made in a Facebook group or on a video, and like show them how you're already perfectly poised to help the people that they're passionate about, because you've been helping them too. That's a no-brainer. And I've seen that for people that, like when Ramit Sethi was hiring for a while, and he's, if anybody doesn't know him, he wrote that book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, and has a lot of great content. But whenever he hires, he's specifically said in public, like, I'm disappointed when people don't use my methods to apply for work with me, and they're not using what I teach. That shows that they're just not familiar with me. So do whatever you can to give yourself an edge.
So it takes a lot of study, and this is actually a lot more work and effort than people expect sometimes. And I've gone through this several times with some of the big fish clients that I've worked with, but the reality is, if you want to land the big fish, you've got to put in the effort required. You can't just throw a hand line in a little river and expect to reel in something worth catching.
It's rare. It's very, very rare that you're going to land a gig like this with a cold contact, unless you are like the cream of the crop. It's not impossible. I'm never going to say anything is impossible, but you've got to be like mind-blowingly super impressive to land big gigs like this. We're talking about those kids that come up with such creative packages for advertising agencies that they make the news type impressive. It's not impossible. It's never impossible. And you should always try your best. And then so long as you're treating everything that you do as a learning experience and not using it to judge yourself as a failure if it didn't work, but be like, okay, that didn't work. How do I do better next time? Then you'll find success as long as you keep at it. I don't know anybody that has gotten where they are at a high level that hasn't failed repeatedly, spectacularly, and gotten up to try again.
Exactly right. I mean, when I was talking to the CEO of probably the biggest coaching company in the world, or one of them, and I started talking to him about writing copy for him, and that would have been a huge feather in my cap as well. And started talking to members of his team, and in the end, they offered me probably about just give me the math, but probably about 5 or 6 times the amount of money that I've ever made in my life.
Wow.
But it's a very long-term project over the course of a year. So it was basically a salary, but a good one. And, but after that, our communication just broke down, and obviously things changed. It took so long, and things changed on their end. And then for whatever reason, we didn't connect often enough. And then, things just kind of dried up. And then, but the way I see that, as well as the learning experience, it's another thing that I could go back to potentially, because I built the relationship. I know the guy personally now and his team. So I could go back to that person at a later date if I was looking for more work.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably a big mistake that I see a lot of newer copywriters making too, is that there's this like invisible dividing line in their brain between like personal relationships and business relationships. And business relationships, they almost like hold people to an impossible standard, and don't allow people to be people. for some reason. Like, oh, I see that a lot in Facebook groups online too. If this client missed a payment or they weren't talking to me and like, they're such a dick. And I can't believe that they would disrespect me in the industry like this. And I'm like, oh, did you call them? Did you talk to them? Did you find out what's going in there? Like, would you treat your best friend like that? Would you just like, I haven't talked to you for 2 weeks. You're a fucking dick. Or would you be like, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. Is anything going on? Can I help? Like, so if you treat people like someone you give a damn about instead of this like cash cow that owes you money, I think people can tell. And like you mentioned earlier, the feather in the cap. I mean, the people that are hiring can tell if you're out to just use them for their name versus actually providing value and believing in the mission that they serve. So genuineness, authenticity, and really, really wanting to help and being a caring person is more important than ever right now.
Yeah. And if you go into it with that attitude of, we keep talking about landing the big fish, but if you look at an expert and see him as a big fish that you're going to land, that's the exact attitude that's going to stop you before you get started.
Yeah, because you're going to be, subconsciously
they're smart enough
setting
to
off their
yeah.
It's like you're setting off their bullshit meter, and they don't even know what they don't like about you, but they can tell that there's something.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people, so many of my friends in the copy community kind of laugh at me. I think it took a full year before I was actually comfortable saying that I work for Jeff Walker. And I had to I didn't change my LinkedIn. Whenever people interviewed me about the work that I was doing, I would say, oh, I'm working for a pretty big name internet marketer, but I want to keep that confidential. And it wasn't until one of the events where he mentioned me by name from stage and was like, Angie, my copywriter. And I was like, oh, well, he just said it to 1,000 people, so I guess it's okay if I say it now.
Yeah.
But and I think that, like me recusing myself from conversations, like me not using Jeff to advance my career, like, could I have gotten farther? Could I have made some money from that? I probably could have. Never say never, but that's not the kind of person that I am. And I think that they respect that about me.
Yeah. Interesting. So I think this is all really valuable for anybody who wants to work with people who have that brand name recognition. This is something that I've done in the last few years, last 5 or 6 years or more. Not because I want to land the big fish, but because working with these people is such a learning experience in itself. I mean, can you imagine working closely with Vishen of Mind Valley, who's a really smart marketer, really great copywriter. I was running around in meetings with him, going to different meetings and everything, and strategy meetings, and he was providing all this feedback on my copy, even though I'd been writing for more than 10 years at the time. That's why I wanted to work so closely with him, and the same with Justin and everyone else. It's never about that selfish attitude. It's about what can I learn from these people.
Absolutely. And Jeff is one of the most amazing strategic minds I've ever had. I thought that I was pretty well versed in copy and marketing strategy when I met him, and I'd seen the inner workings of a $1 billion retail company. But the way this man thinks just blows my mind. I'm still learning how he processes campaigns 2 years in. And Kevin is one of the most people savvy, relationship capital knowledgeable people that I've ever met. And I've learned so much about, not going on a warpath every time I feel some slight, and actually building relationships with people and giving them grace for being human. And so what I've picked up in working with them and for them and helping them further their missions is just priceless.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the next step for anyone who wants to go down this path? Can they find out about more at your website?
Yeah, I have a website, angiecolee.com. I don't really take on any copy projects all that much, but I do some copy coaching and consulting. Cool. And I'm more focused on helping freelancers kind of find that courage to take the next step. Because the reality is, if you're doing most job boards or Upwork or any of those sites, that you're always going to be playing small potatoes. Build the relationships, step out of your comfort zone, there's more than enough work at these top level gigs to go around. And they're thirsty, so friggin' thirsty for talented copywriters.
Yeah. And it's very important. And if you're listening on iTunes, go to geniusesofcopywriting.com. I'll put the link in for everything up there, and the transcript and everything. So go and check that out. But I highly recommend that you follow Angie closely and learn from her in every way that you can, because she's someone that you could definitely pay attention to. So yeah, I really appreciate you spending time with us today. It's been very enlightening, very valuable.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Ev. Talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Geniuses of Copywriting with Brian Casangina. To get the full transcript and all the resources mentioned on today's show, go to www.geniusesofcopywriting.com now.